Okay, so the question is, what will it take to liberate Palestine? Well, obviously, the first step in the liberation of Palestine is the resistance that's taking place in Palestine. Resistance is necessary, and it's the only way that this issue would even be an issue internationally at all. Palestinian people were not, if they were not fighting back, then the issue wouldn't have been raised. So the first step has obviously got to be the resistance within Palestine itself. And in order to look at that deeper, we need to look at what the goal of Palestinian liberation is. It's a The goal is equal rights, civic and political democratic rights for everyone, rather than a state where only people of a certain religion are given full rights. It the right of return of all Palestinians and their descendants to the land that they were expelled from, the return of actual land to the Palestinians, and it means ending the Zionist entity that is a full replacement of the current Zionist state, not a two-state solution. Some people put forward this unrealistic solution, which is not possible anyway. But if it were possible, it would simply mean a smaller Zionist state that would still be oppressive to the Palestinians, would still be based on dispossession and so forth. So we're not for a two-state solution. We're for what is often called the democratic non-sectarian state in Palestine. Now the question comes up, is this possible within capitalism? Well, I don't believe it is, but let's look at what it would be like if it were possible in capital. The best we can hope for is a South African situation. In South Africa, formal apartheid did because of the mass struggle of the people in South Africa, and they instituted one man, one vote. Laws are equal, and so forth. But what results under capitalism? Economic apartheid still exists in South Africa. There is mass black poverty and concentration of wealth primarily among the ruling class. Palestine, in a capitalist state, even if it were possible to have an end to Zionism, would be similar. The concentration of wealth would still be among the Zionists, and the Palestinians would be still poor and oppressed. All we have to do is look at the U.S. It says form of equality. In this country, legally, black people and white people are equal. And yet we know what the reality is. We know about institutional racism. We know about mass imprisonment. We know about police brutality, etc. In fact, a socialist society is the only way to have full equality. Only economic equality can ensure political and civic equality. So what will it take to bring down Zionism? Well, Marxists usually look to the working class. The class is exploited by us, produces the wealth of capitalism, and therefore has an interest in overthrowing capitalism and a potential economic power to do so. However, in the case of Israel, as Jim has shown us, the Marxists do not look to the working class, the Israeli Jewish working class, as a force that can transform and overthrow Zionism. This is because of a massive imperialist subsidy to Israel, a Zionist subsidy, which raises the living standards of the Jewish working class in Israel, and because they're part of the continuing dispossession of Palestinians, includes military dispossession. Most Israelis are part of the military apparatus, etc. And reflecting this are the political attitudes. So that means that like 90% of the Israeli Jewish population supports the genocide in Gaza. And this is not just because they're bad people, it's because of the structure of Israel and the colonial settler nature of the state. So the working class vision that Marxists want to overthrow capitalism needs to be regional and international. Secondly, ending Zionism we need to end U.S. support. The Zionist project is hostile to the people of the region. Because it's a colonial settler state, in hostility from the Arab people in the surrounding areas. This means that Zionism has always required imperialist support. First the British, French, the USSR, and now the US. The US needs its most stable ally in the region because the Arab states are subject to possible internal revolution because their work class and peasantry are exploited and oppressed. So therefore, they can never be the stable ally that the US needs. This is not true in the case of Israel because it's a colonial settler state. So the imperialist support for Zionism and Israel is based on its colonial nature, and its colonial nature requires to seek imperialist support. Israel is useful to the U.S. even outside the Middle East. The U.S. has pushed voted Israeli action in support of apartheid South Africa and interventions in Central America, alliances with the U.S. police forces, etc. The U.S. government has been clear on this. Both parties have been consistently Zionist. Both parties support imperialism and thus Zionism. The Congress people who now call for fire still support the state of Israel, and we need to remember that. Biden said many years ago, I think it's about time that we stop apologizing for our support for Israel. There is no apology to be made, none. It's the best $3 billion investment we make. Were it not for Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect their interests in the region. Or as Richard Nixon, president from 1969 to 74, said, Israel is cheaper than the Sixth Fleet. So would the U.S. abandon Israel? Well, I suppose it's possible, but it is extremely unlikely. So what are the implications of the internal structure of the Israeli economy and society and imperialist support? One of the implications is that there can be no internal revolution to overthrow Zionism among the Israeli Jewish population. Israel received massive military and economic aid from imperialism, enough to maintain Zionism. So as far as the strategy on Zionism, it must be anti-imperialist. Only when the U.S. imperialism is overthrown or so weakened that it cannot aid Zionism will it stop aiding Zionism. It must be regional. The Arab states pulled by imperialism support Israel. Their anti-Israeli rhetoric continues, but have pro-Israeli actions, treaties, the Abraham Accords, etc. As anti-Zionist Israeli socialist Moshe Machover put it, the Palestinian people are waging a battle where they confront Zionism, which is supported by imperialism. As long as imperialism has a real stake in the Middle East, it is unlikely to withdraw its support for Zionism, its natural ally, and to permit its overthrow. It will defend to the last drop of Arab oil. On the other hand, imperialist interests and domination in the region cannot be shattered without overthrowing those junior partners of imperialist exploitation that constitute ruling classes of the Arab world. As Palestine Socialist Introduction put it, neoliberalism drew various Arab states together with Israel into a single economic zone under the domination of U.S. economic power. However, though the Arab states, the ruling classes, support Israel, the Arab masses do not. The Arab working classes and peasantry over and over again that they oppose the state of Israel. And the Arab working class has the economic clout to really challenge it. It can challenge and overthrow the Arab states, which are linchpin in imperialist control of the region. The Arab Spring of 2011 shows the potential, so did the uprisings in the broader region in 2019. These rebellions rebelled against neoliberalism and were opposed to Zionism. The overthrow of Zionism must be part of a regional and international revolution. Only such a revolution can be strong enough to challenge the state of Israel. Only such a revolution can end the subsidy to Israelis' population and therefore win some of them over to support for the Palestinian liberation. So what does that mean for the Palestinian liberation actor in the United States? We need to have solidarity with the Palestinian movement. This is necessary for the support of Palestine. And as Jim told us, we need no moralistic qualms. We need to have full out, by any means necessary, support. We need to especially organize workers here in the U.S. to use their economic power against Zionism and against U.S. imperialism. We need to support boycott, divestment, and sanctions. We need to fight for the right to protest and oppose the shutdown of student organizations and other organizations in support of Palestine, oppose the laws that are being put forward against boycott, divestment, and sanctions. We need to reject the Democratic Party. And I'll repeat, even the ceasefire supporters are pro-Israel. We need to remember that in us. We need to challenge all aspects of U.S. imperialism, not just on Palestine. The weaker U.S. imperialism is, the less it can aid Israel. And this means opposing U.S. interventions in other places, such as in Ukraine. We need to understand that imperialism is not a policy. It is instead integral to capitalism. The economic competition, which is the foundation of capitalism, yields military competition. To end imperialism and war, we need to end the system that causes it. To over imperialism, we must end capitalism. As Palestine for a Socialist Introduction puts it, we need a rupture that pushes beyond the capitalist state. Revolutionary struggle, not only within occupied Palestine, but also in the streets of the Arab capitals across the region and among workers in the imperialist countries. Just as we cannot conceive Israel's occupation in isolation, we cannot conceive Palestine as a purely national question. We need to support every struggle against exploitation and oppression, since they all connect. They all contribute to the weakening and finally, hopefully, the overthrow of capitalism. Palestinian liberation is a firm struggle. It will not be quick or easy. A central part of that is developing a revolutionary party that can organize a revolution against capitalism successfully. Palestinian activists need to support Palestine directly and build towards a revolutionary party. This means that Palestinian activists need to seriously consider joining a revolutionary socialist organization. Thank you.